the Indiana Fever front office is about to do another roster overhaul for the 2026 WNBA season.
The Indiana Fever delivered a bombshell no one anticipated. Mere hours after their elimination, the team executed a shocking move that reverberated throughout the WNBA by releasing 8 players in a single evening. This left fans stunned, insiders in a frenzy, and rival coaches completely blindsided. What could compel a franchise to conduct such a swift house cleaning? Was it a strategic rebuild or simply a rash response to yet another lackluster season?
I believe a lot of players will be exiting the building like Elvis, bruh. They got to get the hell out of Dodge. Now, I'm telling you right now, I believe more than half of this team is going to leave. I just got to keep it real. A lot of players is going to leave. I believe a few big names is probably going to leave. And more importantly, we need to get the ball back to Caitlin.
One thing is certain, this is no longer solely about basketball. It's now about egos, internal power dynamics, and the race to construct a team around Caitlin Clark before the window closes. As things calm down, a single question lingers: who is staying, who is leaving, and what are the implications for the Fever's future? The true narrative behind these 8 releases is much more complex than anticipated, and the story begins now. The final buzzer didn't just signal the end of the Fever's playoff aspirations, it marked the end of an era. The tension inside that locker room was palpable. Players who had battled all season through injuries, shifting lineups, and internal drama abruptly understood their futures in Indiana were precarious. The coaching staff remained silent, the atmosphere was somber, and rumors began to circulate before the room even cleared.
No one predicted them to go this far, especially without Caitlin Clark. Now, granted, they was projected to be, final contenders, but that was with the roster that they had. Obviously, they had a whole nother roster, and like I keep telling you, momentum was the key.
Something significant was on the horizon. Team sources indicate the decision to cut 8 players wasn't a snap judgment. This action had been developing for weeks in private. For months, rumors swirled about internal friction between the front office and head coach Stephanie White, particularly over minutes and team chemistry. The Fever's collapse late in the season laid bare every flaw, from ineffective rotations to clear frustration between the team's veterans and its rookies.
We all know Stephanie White was running a whole lot of sets, bro. Whole lot of sets, whole lot of off-ball things, whole lot of things that Caitlin Clark really don't like to do, bro. Let's just be honest.
By the time their elimination was official, management's decision was already made. The Fever had poured everything into Caitlin Clark, the league's preeminent star and a marketing juggernaut. But as the season wore on, supporters began to question why the team wasn't structured around her abilities. Pundits noted that the offense had strayed from the up-tempo fluid system that made Clark a collegiate icon. It had devolved into a rigid framework of forced plays, sluggish ball movement, and ill-fitting lineups.
Granted, they was running this off ball and doing all these different experiments. Without momentum, I don't believe they would have made it as far. I believe they was playing meaningful basketball just due to the amount of injuries that the team took, and it kind of motivated them. They said it in their exit interview. The bench power pretty much motivated them and gave them the energy they need to prolong and get through a bunch of them long stretches in them series.
Clark adapted as best she could, but the absence of rhythm was apparent. In the final game, she appeared drained, shouldering an immense burden while struggling to operate in a system not suited to her. Then the injuries mounted. Key players went down one by one, revealing the Fever's lack of depth. The front office pointed to coaching decisions, while the players cited conditioning issues. As the losses mounted, the message became undeniable. Something needed to change immediately. The Fever were unwilling to endure another year of underperformance, with one of the most celebrated players in basketball history on their team. So, following the elimination, calls were placed before dawn. Agents received notifications. Lockers were empty. 8 players were informed of their release. The decision was harsh, but it conveyed a clear message. The Fever were no longer content with mediocrity. This was a move to build a winning team around Clark and Aaliyah Boston, not to just get through the season. But as fans cheered the prospect of a rebuild, others perceived a different narrative, one of power, pressure, and control. This was more than a simple roster adjustment. It was a clear sign that the Fever's front office had hit its limit. If you believe the cuts ended there, just wait to see who could be the next to go. The fallout from the roster purge clarified one thing: the Fever are finally prepared to build around Caitlin Clark the way she was intended to play. For months, fans had pleaded to let Caitlin be Caitlin. No more convoluted plays, no more being forced away from the ball. What established her as a generational talent at Iowa wasn't merely her scoring, it was her autonomy, her tempo, and her mastery of the court. When she operated on instinct, her teammates thrived on her energy. When that autonomy was taken away, the team's spirit vanished with it. Within the Fever organization, various figures had been advocating for a return to the read and react offense Clark excelled in during college. Even former Iowa coach Lisa Bluder's system was cited in recent discussions as a blueprint for maximizing Clark's abilities. In that framework, she was more than a scorer. She was a facilitator, a leader, the very pulse of the offense. With a leaner roster and newly available cap space, this can truly become her team.
Let's listen to what Caitlin Clark had to say years ago.
A huge reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You know, you're going to have the ball in your hands a lot. And I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read and react offense that we run was super important for myself. You know, you're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love.
Now, yeah, I heard that, right?
Sources near the front office suggest this offseason's main priority will be signing players who fit that system, high IQ shooters, floor spacers, and teammates who can anticipate Caitlin's reads rather than wait for instructions. The objective is to replicate that Iowa on steroids brand of basketball, allowing Clark to control the pace and keep defenses off balance. An insider even quipped, "If you aren't prepared to shoot, cut, or move, don't even come to training camp." Caitlin herself remained patient, but her frustration was noticeable. In press conferences, she chose her words with care, but alluded to a desire for a more dynamic offense. Fans recall her expressing a wish to just play basketball again, a subtle yet potent critique of how restrictive the structured system had become. Beneath that composed exterior was a competitor weary of being constrained. For Fever fans, this change is about more than just strategy, it's about identity. The organization understands that when Clark is set free, everything is different. The arena's energy, the court's chemistry, and even how opponents defend them. This overhaul isn't just about cutting players, it's about eliminating excuses. It's about aligning coaching, recruitment, and lineups with the player who single-handedly re-energized the WNBA's fan base. If the Fever fully commit to this, they could be but it all hinges on one thing, whether Stephanie White and the coaches can adjust. The same coach who relied on rigid playbooks is now at a crossroads. Either she adapts to Caitlin's style or she'll be the next person out the door. The front office made its decision. The question now is whether the coach will embrace the new vision or stand in its way. As the situation settled after the massive roster cut, one name was consistently mentioned behind the scenes: head coach Stephanie White. Once lauded for stabilizing a young squad, she now finds herself in the middle of escalating tension. Insiders report that her rapport with the front office has quietly soured. The reason is straightforward. Her system is incompatible with the Fever's intended direction. White's structured play-by-play offense was effective for a while, but with Caitlin Clark leading, it started to feel obsolete. Fans noticed, analysts highlighted it, and now the front office has been unequivocal. Change is imminent, with or without her approval.
Now, the style of play, and this is what I've been saying, we need to go back to the basics. And the basic is this style of play with Caitlin Clark, giving her the ball. Let her play freely, openly. Let her do what she do. No calling different sets going up the court. No doing none of this. Put players around Caitlin with that know how to obviously read sets, know their responsibility, because Caitlin Clark said it herself.
White's defenders contend she was given a tough situation, numerous injuries, rotating lineups, and a roster of players still learning to gel around a superstar made consistency nearly unattainable. Her detractors, however, claim she was unwilling to adapt, tenaciously holding on to a rigid system that hampered creativity and decelerated the team. Too frequently, the offense seemed predictable, with endless pick and rolls and isolation plays that confined Clark to a set of boundaries instead of allowing her to play on instinct. For a player who thrives on improvisation, it was a gradual suffocation. The breaking point allegedly occurred late in the season during heated internal meetings. Front office leaders pushed for a more fluid offense centered on Clark's playmaking. White, in response, defended her methods, asserting the team was not prepared for such freedom. This disagreement evolved into a quiet power struggle that colored the Fever's final games. Following their playoff ousting, a source said that management saw the loss as confirmation that White's approach couldn't lead them to victory. Players also perceived the risk. Some veterans supported the coach, feeling structure was essential for order. Others privately expressed frustration, describing the offense as micromanaged and robotic. Aylin Clark, always the professional, kept her views guarded in public, but her body language spoke volume. It was visible on the court, the indecision, the looks to the bench, the instances where her natural rhythm was supplanted by hesitation. It was the appearance of a player holding back. Now, with 8 players gone, the focus is squarely on Stephanie White. Her future is unclear, and rumors of a potential replacement are intensifying. The Fever's front office has reportedly started assessing alternative coaching candidates who could implement a more contemporary offensive style, one that reflects Clark's success in college. Whether White is retained for another season may hinge entirely on her willingness to change. At this stage, the message from the top is unmistakable. This franchise is Caitlin Clark, and if the head coach cannot build a team around her, the next departure announcement from Indiana might not be about a player. It could be about Stephanie White leaving next.
Let me see. Bree Hall gone. Shea Petty gone. Natasha Howard gone. Bree Turner gone. Damster's gone. That's 5. Ariel Powers. Sydney Colson. Hold on. Sydney Colson. And Damster's 8. Yep. I believe they lose 8 players. This is just my prediction.
The moment the news broke that the Fever had cut 8 players, social media went wild. Fans raced to understand the move, who was safe, who was out, and why so many at once. Within hours, names began to emerge, and a clear pattern took shape. This was not a random act, it was a declaration. Each player released signified a change in philosophy, a message that the Fever were through with subpar results and uninspired play. Reports state the cut started with bench players who couldn't deliver consistent contributions. Bree Hall, Shea Petty, and Damaris Duntes were among the initial departures. Although all had demonstrated potential, their seasons were marred by injuries and inconsistency. The front office prioritized reliability over unrealized potential. Following them was Natasha Howard, the most prominent name on the list. Despite her experience and championship background, insiders claim Howard's contract expectations and inconsistent performance sealed her fate. She sought a maximum deal, but the Fever were not prepared to allocate that kind of capital in a system now centered on Clark in Boston. Then came the surprising cuts, Lexi Hull and Sydney Colson. Hull was a beloved player and a defensive stalwart, but the team could not rationalize her salary given her declining output and injury history. Colson's release, on the other hand, sparked debate online. The veteran guard provided leadership and levity in the locker room, but the front office was focused on youth, speed, and versatility. Her 2 points per game average was not enough to secure another year on the team. Ariel Powers' exit was likely the most expected. She had difficulty finding her place, and her chemistry with Caitlin Clark never materialized. The last names, Khadijah Kay Stokes, and Chloe Bibby, were developmental players the team still valued, but in a complete roster overhaul, sentimentality gives way to vision. 8 players gone. In an instant, the move created substantial cap space, affording the Fever a level of flexibility they hadn't seen in years. Fans quickly started to theorize about who might be brought in to replace them. Shooters, defenders, or veterans capable of matching Clark's pace. Yet, beneath the excitement, there was a serious note. These weren't merely roster cuts. They were casualties of a broader reconstruction that required absolute commitment to a new identity. Every player's departure had its own backstory. Some will secure spots on other teams. Others might not play in the league again. It's the harsh truth of professional basketball, a stark reminder that this is a different world from college. The Fever are adapting quickly, and anyone unable to keep up will be left in the dust. Still, one question persists among fans. Did the front office act too hastily? Releasing 8 players at once seems extreme, almost desperate. But from management's perspective, this was a necessary, though painful, procedure. They are wagering that by excising the old system, they can construct something superior. If their bet pays off, this massive clear-out might be remembered as the moment the Indiana Fever finally matured. If it fails, this audacious move could plague them for years to come. With 8 players gone, the power structure inside the Fever's locker room has been completely transformed. For the first time since Caitlin Clark's arrival, the team's dynamic is unmistakably centered on her, not just as a top scorer, but as the foundational piece of the franchise. The veterans who once dictated the pace, the atmosphere, and the locker room pecking order are largely gone. What remains is a squad designed to follow Clark's direction. Kelsey Mitchell is now one of the few remaining players with both seniority and widespread respect. After years of leading the franchise through difficult seasons, she has demonstrated her loyalty and resilience. Her on-court chemistry with Clark improved significantly near the end of the season, particularly as they found a rhythm in the backcourt together. Insiders report that the front office considers Mitchell a stabilizing force, a veteran who can both guide and adjust to a quicker, more dynamic offensive scheme. She is anticipated to have a key role in leading the young core. Then there is Aaliyah Boston, the quiet powerhouse. Boston's reliability, both on and off the court, made her indispensable during the roster shakeup. Alongside Clark, she constitutes the bedrock of the franchise's future. The front office reportedly views them as the twin faces of Indiana, Clark as the catalyst, Boston as the consequently. Nearly every personnel decision is now aimed at strengthening their partnership by surrounding them with shooters, screen setters, and dependable defenders who complement their style. However, not everyone is enthusiastic about this new arrangement. Some of the remaining players have privately expressed worries that the team's identity is being completely overshadowed by Clark's fame. Others are concerned that management is placing an excessive amount of pressure on one player so early in her career. Caitlin's popularity has elevated the Fever from a struggling small market team to one of the league's main attractions overnight, and that brings its own set of difficulties. Every game, every statement, every move is scrutinized. Nevertheless, the directive from the top is clear. This is now Caitlin's team. Front office executives have reportedly conducted meetings emphasizing alignment, requiring coaches, players, and staff to work in concert with the new vision. One source referred to it as a reset, not a rebuild. In essence, anyone not fully committed to this direction will not be around for long. A tangible shift is already apparent in practice. The atmosphere feels more energetic, the tempo is faster, and the offense is more fluid. Teammates are now learning to play off Clark's instincts instead of waiting for elaborate set plays. It's occasionally disorganized, but it represents progress, and for the first time in a long while, there is a real conviction that this team can become a serious contender. But authority always has its cost. The pressure on Clark, White, and the front office is at an all-time high. A single misstep, a losing streak, and the very fans who are now celebrating this new direction could turn. The Fever have cleaned house, but whether they did it correctly is yet to be determined. Behind every surprising roster move, there is one factor that many fans don't consider: the finances. The Indiana Fever's front office didn't just release players based on performance. They also cleared salary. By terminating 8 contracts, the Fever created millions in cap room, and that alters everything for the 2026 season. This was not solely about basketball. It was about securing financial flexibility in a league where every dollar is critical. The Fever's payroll had become inflated with mid-level contracts that provided minimal return. Veterans like Natasha Howard and Aerial Powers brought experience, but also significant salaries. While both looked good on paper, neither propelled the team to a championship caliber level. Sources claim the front office became increasingly frustrated watching large portions of their salary cap be consumed by players who were not delivering consistent performances. Parting ways was a tough call, but it provided Indiana with the opportunity to pursue more impactful talent and, crucially, players who are a good fit for Caitlin Clark's style. It is well known that Clark has transformed the business operations of the Fever. Ticket sales have soared, national television appearances have multiplied, and merchandise sales have set new records. The front office is aware that with her on the team, the Fever are a valuable asset. This raises the stakes and narrows the margin for error. The ownership is keen to capitalize on this momentum. That is why the rebuild is not just about athletics, it's also financial. Every contract, endorsement, and partnership from now on must align with that strategy. Amber Cox, a key executive for the Fever, has reportedly been the main proponent of this financial overhaul. Her plan is straightforward: surround Clark with cost-effective, high IQ players who can space the floor, make open shots, and commit to a modern offensive approach. The Fever are looking for shooters who move well without the ball, veterans willing to accept lower pay for a positive team culture, and young players eager for a chance. Imagine Iowa on steroids, but executed within a budget. This is where the Fever may have discovered a new strategic advantage. While some WNBA teams are overspending to assemble super teams, Indiana is methodically building a sustainable base, a roster that is both stylistically and financially sound. The franchise is aiming for long-term stability, not fleeting excitement. They intend to build around Clark and Boston without being constrained by unfavorable contracts or bloated salaries. Still, not everyone is in agreement. Some agents have voiced criticism, accusing the Fever of being overly aggressive in their roster clearing and suggesting it implies that loyalty is not valued. But for the front office, loyalty doesn't secure championships. A well-structured plan does. They are banking on disciplined spending and more intelligent roster building to make the Fever a consistent contender, rather than a fleeting sensation. At the end of the day, these actions were not just about cutting players, they were about eliminating costs and excuses. The Fever's stance is unequivocal. If you cannot provide value either on the court or on the financial statements, you will not be a part of this new chapter. From this point forward, everything in Indiana is dictated by two factors: Caitlin Clark and the bottom line. The moment the news broke that the Fever had released 8 players, social media went into a frenzy. In minutes, and Fever, Purge, and Clark were trending on X and Instagram. Some fans hailed it as the most courageous move in the franchise's history, while others claimed the front office was losing its grip. The WNBA world has not witnessed such a drastic roster change in recent memory, and everyone had an opinion, from analysts and former players to loyal fans who had supported the Fever through numerous losing seasons. For Caitlin Clark supporters, this was a moment of vindication. They contended that the team had squandered too much time attempting to fit Clark into a system that was ill-suited for her. "Let her cook" became a renewed slogan, resonating across comment sections and sports programs. Fans inundated forums, calling for the Fever to implement the fast-paced, fluid style that made Clark a star at Iowa. They craved the return of the old fire, the deep threes, the no-look passes, and the fearless leadership. But there was dissent. Critics alleged the organization was yielding to star power. Some argued that the mass cuts indicated the Fever were succumbing to pressure from fans and sponsors, rather than relying on sound basketball decisions. Others noted that building a team around a single player, regardless of her talent, can backfire if the team chemistry fails to develop. ESPN panels discussed whether the Fever were constructing a dynasty or making a desperate move. One headline even asked Indiana's rebuild genius or panic. Inside the locker room, the sentiment was also varied. Players close to those who were released described the atmosphere as somber but not surprising. A few posted heartfelt farewells on social media, expressing gratitude to teammates and fans while alluding to behind-the-scenes frustration. In contrast, younger players conveyed enthusiasm for the future, stating that the team now feels more focused and unified. It's a bittersweet equilibrium, a mix of loss and optimism. The media frenzy grew even more intense when fans observed Clark herself liking several posts that supported the roster changes. This small digital act sparked another online craze, with thousands of comments analyzing its significance. Did she endorse the move? Was she finally asserting control over the team's path? Intentionally or not, it reinforced the narrative that Clark is now both the face and the driving force of Indiana's new direction. Television networks quickly capitalized on the story. Talk shows debated how this decision would alter the WNBA's power balance, particularly as the league aims for expansion and increased viewership. All at once, Indiana, once a little-known franchise, was leading the news and setting records for online engagement. Whether you approve or disapprove, the Fever instantly became the most discussed team in the league. Amid all the turmoil, one fact is clear: this roster overhaul has sparked fan interest in a way the league greatly needed. The Fever may have lost 8 players, but they have acquired something far more valuable: relevance, intrigue, and the undivided attention of the basketball community. Now that the situation has stabilized, the Indiana Fever are at a pivotal moment with 8 players gone, significant cap space, and an unprecedented level of attention. This offseason has the potential to shape the franchise for the next decade. The front office is focused on a single objective: to assemble a team that not only complements Caitlin Clark's abilities, but also reestablishes the Fever's reputation as a genuine powerhouse. This is no longer a team in search of a path. It's a team actively shaping its own future. Insiders report that the Fever's front office has an ambitious strategy underway. They are pursuing shooters who can capitalize on Clark's passing, versatile wings who can defend without compromising the team's pace, and veteran leaders who know how to perform in high-stakes situations. One executive characterized the ideal roster as fast, fearless, and fluid. The objective is clear: to create a modern offense centered on Clark's instincts and Aaliyah Boston's dominance in the paint. Expect the Fever to present a completely different look next season, both stylistically and emotionally. The coaching staff is reportedly under pressure to implement a more open and creative system. Practices are anticipated to emphasize movement, spacing, and read-based play rather than structured calls. It's a comprehensive cultural overhaul, and it's precisely what fans have been clamoring for since Clark's debut. However, it will not be straightforward. Every rebuild carries inherent risks. Building chemistry requires time, egos must be managed, and the expectations are immense. Caitlin Clark is not just a player, she is the symbol of the league's next generation. Every shot she attempts, every defeat she faces, will be intensely scrutinized on a national stage. If the Fever start the season poorly, the critics will be quick to pounce. The front office is aware that patience will be limited, and the external noise will be overwhelming. Despite the challenges, there is an undeniable excitement surrounding what is happening in Indiana. Fans are purchasing tickets again, merchandise sales are booming, and for the first time in a long while, the Fever possess something the WNBA cannot simply create: genuine buzz. The blend of Clark's star power, Boston's solid foundation, and a new roster designed for speed could make this team essential viewing. This is not merely a rebuild, it's a revolution. The Fever have moved on from the old guard, redefined their vision, and entrusted the future to their young superstar. If they are successful, this offseason's purge will be seen as the moment Indiana was reborn. If it fails, it could serve as a cautionary tale about the risks of betting an entire franchise on a single player. In any case, the next phase of Fever basketball will not be quiet. It will be audacious, unpredictable, and guided by a singular purpose: to ensure that the Caitlin Clark era fulfills all the promise the league has been anticipating. The Indiana Fever's move to release 8 players was more than just a roster adjustment. It was a declaration. This marks the start of a new period, characterized by decisive actions, a clearer vision, and an unwavering commitment to building around Caitlin Clark. The franchise is no longer playing cautiously. They are risking everything on a system that will unlock her full capabilities and bring back the competitive fire that once made Indiana a top team. Fans can feel it, the change in atmosphere, the potential for something greater. Whether this bold move will be the turning point or the team's greatest misstep is yet to be determined. But one thing is for sure: the Fever have captured everyone's attention. From the front office to the court, every decision now has significant implications. And as a new season nears, a single message is resonating throughout the league: the Caitlin Clark era in Indiana has formally commenced.